So then, we are back with more understandings from the time of the Second Tabernacle services, where we find in the Aramaic English translation of the word. This translation comes from the original manuscripts of the prophets of the Tzayelic lineage. So then, we can understand the time of the end as per Yeshayahu the prophet. We find layers of understanding of the spring feast, the autumn feast, and also the returning of the cities of the Messiah laid waste for many centuries. So then, as we understand, Yeshayahu the prophet being the very best as far as the recording of the instructions, prophecies, and then the future, we then analyze what the Messiah came and what he did. He came then, obviously, and he did not do what he wanted. He said, whatsoever was instructed on instructions, so he did. Some translations are a bit weird because they said, whatsoever then he observes the Father doing, so does he. But the translation is wrong. What the Messiah truly said was precisely whatsoever is on the instructions, these he must do. So then, those people who are overly religious, those repetitious people, they don't even understand what they are reading, then they can understand what the Messiah has said. So then, let's try evaluate what goes on then in 2 Corinthians 11:4. There was then Shaliach Shaul, he was from the lineage, and then he was explaining the instructions as then the Spirit was then being dispersed. Simply dispersed means 7 spirits of Elohim, 7 functions. So then, let's try understand what these means, because the instructions, as far as we can understand, there are many topics. And the topic most related at the moment because of revelation. If you don't understand revelation, you are not saved. Only because you go to a certain place and then you hear then a person over there speaking at the podium saying lies and junk in front of your face, stating if you give your life then to this crazy Savior wandering in the world, then you are saved, when you are not. No tabernacling, no salvation. But let's then understand, prior to go there, and then verify by ourselves on the instruction itself. 11:4. So then, Shaliach Shaul is explaining, for if he that comes to you had proclaimed to you another Messiah, whom we have not proclaimed, as we understand, and we always will understand, males are always in charge of explaining the instructions. It is very seldom you find ladies involved with the true instructions. It's not their job. So then, the Creator has ordered in the universe, and He has decided that the male should lead. Ladies are helpers. It does not mean, in terms of the Gentile world, every time. Gentile world is another situation. From the lineage, if you want to understand the lineage, Eastern culture, and the true instructions, then you must understand males are then the leaders and the instructors as far as the holy instructions, and ladies are helpers. We can't violate the holy instructions. So then, let's try read then. If he that comes to you had proclaimed to you another Messiah, whom we have not proclaimed, or if you had received another Spirit, and a Spirit not received from us, or another instruction, then you must understand you have then the false Messiah. So then, as we are becoming more familiar with the Eastern culture, the desert people, and understanding then the first son of Ibrahim and the second son of Ibrahim, the importance of the covenant with the true creator of the universe, the only situation left at the moment is then the false Messiah. Let's understand then, the Messiah himself said only a few are going to be saved. Now let me ask you this. As far as Christianity, an invented world, and invented word. Invented world because they have created their own. Christo or Christos comes from the Greco language. Now let me ask you this. Comes then the Creator himself, holy on the top of the mountain. Then he was speaking with Moshe, gave the holy instructions. Then his people went through many troubles, and they practiced the holy instructions for more than 1,000 years. And then comes the Messiah, and then he gives to other people salvation without any regard for sin. If the Creator whom I believe, being his holy name Yahweh, if he would do this, he would be a big scoundrel. Since he didn't, then the only situation left is this crazy Messiah, depicted on Revelation by the white horse. Now, many people don't like of hearing this because they can't admit they were deceived. 1,000 years of deceit. What does it mean, deceit? Let's try to understand then the path. And the path is not very easy walking on it. But let's then make sure, as we read these, the importance of maintaining these instructions for what they are. There is no Messiah outside of the Holy of Holies. Whatsoever Moshe said maintains. Now, the Messiah then was involved with the completion of the spring feast. Then, what then the Messiah would do with his 1,000 years? You have to understand, from the time the Messiah ascended until today, a couple thousand years has gone by. You can't then live your life as you please, as you want, and then at the end you don't regard any of the holy instructions, and then you claim for yourself salvation. Pure deceit. What is truly deceit? Deceit is a person where then at the end of the person's life, then the soul goes straight down to the inferno. Those people, yet they believe in some sort of a savior of their own, yet upon death they are going straight down to the inferno. So they believe a Messiah not taught by the Shaliach or the Shilishim at the time. That's why then 2 Corinthians 11:4, if any person comes to you and proclaims you another Messiah, another instruction or another spirit, then be sure of it, you have the false Messiah. A Messiah not in line with what Moshe had taught him. Comes the Messiah, then completes the spring feast, and obviously he would prepare his people for his 1,000 years right in front of them. He was then teaching them how to maintain his 1,000 years via the holy cities. So then people were saved. Salvation has come via the Messiah. Deceit means a person thinks is or her is then saved, he or she. But then at the end of their lives, they find out, whoop, straight down, no return. Then the pride of life. That's why the Messiah then in Mitchiyahu has mentioned is extremely, very extremely, than a person being rich to enter heaven. In other words, a person involved with riches because of the pride of the world, pride of life, cares of this world, they won't enter heaven. The Messiah has said himself. Back then it was easier for a camel to go through the side of the city than for a rich person to enter heaven. Because those people, they live in another world. They like to satisfy their own desires while in line with this world. They won't enter heaven. If the Messiah comes then and teaches, then those people won't be saved. And the riches they have, the Creator himself has nothing to do with it. Believe it or not. In terms of Gentile world, it's the working of their own hands. Let's understand then, previously, then the nation of Israel decided to build cisterns, reservoirs of water. The Creator said he would give them the rain when it's proper time. And every time they were obedient, he did it. But then they were a bit tired of the holy instructions that they wanted to build cisterns, the workings of their own hands. Outside of tabernacling is the work of his or her own hands. The Creator has nothing to do with it, though he understands plainly what's going on. But a person can see, because God gave me. Oh, he did not. He has no part in it. If you don't have tabernacling knowledge in your life, then it's the working of your own hands. But let's say for a moment, we read the instructions, and then we begin our understanding with the 2 Corinthians 11:4. if any person comes to you and does not teach you tabernacling, then what you believe as far as the Savior is concerned is then the false Messiah. It's easier for the camel to go through the side of the city. There was a place over there where then they would have some sort of a trade going on the side of the city. But then, obviously, larger items such as a camel would never go through that place. But the Messiah said himself as an example, it's easier for a camel to go through it than for a rich person to enter heaven. Because they don't understand tabernacling. Why the Messiah said what he did? It's very simple. As the Messiah was then explaining his people, then they were listening very intently. But their understanding of the Creator was simply, if you have much money, then you have the favor of the Creator himself. The Messiah had a real problem with this. What the Messiah was explaining, it has nothing to do with the riches. And he was explaining why, step-by-step formation. The instructions, Leviticus, the 23rd chapter, the feasts, Moadim. But then the people, they were not interested. Can you believe this? The Messiah came, he was revealing the instructions, and the people were not interested. As today you speak of tabernacling, people simply are not interested, because they are bound for destruction, and only a few are going to be saved. Truly the holy instructions is then stupidity for those who are perishing. They hear it, but they don't understand it. So then, comes the Creator, makes a covenant with Abraham. He has a couple of sons. First was then Ishmael, a king. Then later came the second son, Yitzhak, tabernacling. Comes then the factor of the time of restoration. We are during the time of the restoration period. Restoration of the holy cities, as then Yirmiyahu the prophet prophesied centuries ago. And the cities are returning. However, people involved with the riches, these people, if they don't understand tabernacling, upon death, they can't take a coin with them, and their soul will be in torment. There is no escape from. They can desire evil for other people. They can manipulate, destroy, and then becoming a saint once every 7 days, and then resume their rot, the stench of their actions. Upon death, the soul straight down. So then, as we are reading from the truly instructions, from the holy instructions, let's try then understand and establish a section regarding then For instance, Hebrews. Yohanan wrote Hebrews. He was in the first holy city on the land of Cush, precisely per instructions, and he wrote this information because it is tabernacling related. As you read, for in the instructions there are shadows of the prophetic events coming. It's quite interesting. The scoundrel's way the regular instructions were then translated. Try to hear how crazy this Hebrews 11 from the Greco-Roman translation is. Faith doesn't exist. What does exist is a path, the encouragement of each, encouraging each other, maintaining this path. But verify how crazy this is. Now, faith is the persuasion of the things that are in hope, or that you hope for, it is so crazy a person can hardly read it. It's truly a scripture to destroy the minds of the people and steal their money. That's what it was made for. Faith is the persuasion of the things that you hope for, and then the evidence of things not observed. Is a phrase that makes absolutely no sense. Truly a nonsense. Now, the path is obviously encouraging each other of maintaining the holy instructions ever since given, and what you hope for in the light of helping other people maintaining this path. Then the divine hand helps you. If your desire is as the same as the Creator, then He helps you do it. Now, if you try to take a detour on your own and then mesmerizing people as during the time of the Messiah, then it doesn't work. That's why the Messiah said rich people, they won't enter heaven. Well, let's then understand why the Messiah then gave so many of those parables regarding riches. Because, quote unquote, the Messiah was going nowhere explaining plainly the instructions and himself completing them. They were not interested. Yes, they were scoundrels. That's why the Messiah said prostitutes and tax gatherers, they will enter the kingdom of heaven before you, explaining for those people who were then the people involved with the closest, the nearest of the holy instructions. Imagine those people below them. So then the Messiah had to come up with some sort of situation such as parables involving money. Then they've changed. Then they began to listen to him. It is true when the Messiah was talking of the holy instructions he had a very strong voice, and people were listening. But then there were more than 10,000 laws involved with the holy instructions. That is a bit over than 600 of them, and there were more than 10,000 at the time of the Messiah. As he was explaining, they were not interested because there were more than 10,000 of them. Until the Messiah could then conquest their trust, then he had to use those dumb parables. Not because the Messiah was dumb, that's not the point. The point is mixing riches. So then the Messiah could filter the people. The kingdom of heaven is like, the owner of the land, gave his money, and then later on went out on a trip and then came back and tried then to gather his money back and talk to his people. The kingdom of heaven is like then he gave some sort of another type of a parable involving money. And Messiah came to a point where rich people simply they won't enter the kingdom. Because they have such a pride for this world, for this age, for the junk. Always more, never satisfied. And then they try to buy the influence of others. Manipulation, destruction. Then, very importantly, Metchichiahu. The first recorder of the spring feast. Then the Messiah was there explaining very wisely. Then he went near to the border of Yehuda, on the other side of the river. And then the people of the law came near, tempting the Messiah. Can you believe this? Then he said, it is lawful for a man to put away his wife for any cause. But the Messiah answered and said, have you not read? Not. Have you not read? That he who created from the start, he created them male and female. And he said, because of these a man will leave his father and mother and be joined to his wife and become one. Henceforth they won't be two but rather one. Therefore what Elohim has united, man should not separate. They said to him, why then did Moshe give us then the certificate of divorce to put her away? He said, because you people are scoundrels, you are hard. Don't think the Messiah said, because you people are hard. No, he said very rough words. He didn't swear. But it was something like scoundrels. More than likely you people are devils. That's how he said it. But then, later on, he said, but I say to you that he who leaves his wife without a charge of adultery and takes another, then is an adultery. And he that takes a divorced woman, so then sins. Idolatry. His disciples said to him, if such is then the situation, then best not have any wife. And the Messiah said, some people can take this understanding, some people don't. But then later came another person, came a rich young man before the Messiah. And he laid his hands on them and departed from there. He was speaking of the children. And a certain man came and drew near and said to him, Great teacher, what should I do then in order to earn or then have eternal life? Try to understand. The question was, what could he have done to buy eternal life? His first thought was not what he should do, how he could purchase. Then he said to him, why do you say myself as being great? There is no one greater than unto him. Now if you desire to enter into life, maintain then the instructions. He said to him, what instructions? Then the Messiah said to him, you shalt not destroy or do any kind of idolatry. You should not steal. Should not lie. Honor your father and mother, and love your neighbor as yourself. And then amazingly, he said, these I have done then ever since my youth. What do I lack? Why he could not flow regarding the instructions? Why he could not take the time and read and be enlightened by reading the instructions? What was he lacking? Then the Messiah obviously did stare at him and said, then get rid of what you have, give to the people, and then come after me. And there he was, pouting. You haven't observed then when a rich person does not make a deal? Pouting, you know, the big beak. Went pouting away from the Messiah. And the Messiah simply said, rich people simply won't enter heaven. Because they are so conditioned of money and junk and influence. And then they come to the Messiah, they want to buy, they want to purchase their way into heaven. There are people, they are so crazy. They go in Israel and they buy in a cemetery places over there so they can be buried. Stupid. They don't understand the instructions. So then, is the Messiah against rich people? Rich people should answer themselves. Because 99.99% they won't enter heaven. And there is a reason for it. The tone of the conversation when the rich young man came to the Messiah was, how can I purchase this? How can I make myself in the position of have the influence over the problem? And the Mashiach on the other side got nothing to do with this. Don't come with this rich junk, because you won't enter heaven this way. Yes, you have done those orders, the instructions, yet you have manipulated your way through them. That's why the Messiah said, get rid of what you have, then come after me. Then the pouting festival. Because he could not get rid of the influence given via riches. The young man couldn't bear the idea of not having his influence upon his money, and then have the forward motion of the situation. The Messiah said, let me do the forward motion. You come after me. Learn tabernacling so your soul can be saved. These were the objective. You want your riches? Go ahead with it. When you die, your soul goes straight down. So then, isn't it interesting? After this event with this young man, richer beyond imagination, and then pouting, that's nicknamed him the powder. Then chapter 20 of Mechichiah. For the kingdom of heaven is likened to a man, where then the owner of a house, who went out in the morning to hire laborers for his vineyard, and bargained with the laborers for a denarius per day. Then he sent to his vineyard, and went out in the third hour of the day, and saw others who were standing in the marketplace and were idle. And he said to them, go also and go to work. And they departed, and went out, and so on and so forth. So many of them he hired. And there is a relation with money. Can you understand? Influence. Isn't that influential? Pride of life, manipulation of life. The Messiah was explained to the young rich man, get rid of these. If you want to search for the life after this age, then get rid of these. Thus the Messiah then gave another parable afterwards, related with this influence. But the Messiah explained himself as he was then proclaiming tabernacling. He was explaining that he was then the leader of these. You can't buy your way into heaven. You can't manipulate tabernacling for your own. The Messiah was explaining an area of manipulation from Gentile perspective into his perspective. And then some people say, but we worked the entire day, and these people came afterwards. They worked for an hour, and you gave the same pay. So if you are a rich person, try to understand your manipulation, your position in this world means absolutely nothing before the Messiah. Absolutely zero. Is the Messiah saying Do you then get rid of what you have then and then study the instructions? No. That's not what he's saying. No tabernacling, no salvation. Should you, regarding your position, should you be then graceful? That's what he expects you to do. But don't expect heaven to become your own because of it. Don't put yourself in a position where you think you are favored of God because you are so rich. And he's got nothing to do with you. You don't understand tabernacling? He has nothing to do with you. Even those people who once did understand tabernacling, if they've deterred from the holy path, they are also going to be burned. Messiah himself said, if then a person does not bear fruit, then is cut down and destroyed. Is it harsh? No. We are not dealing with a mamby-pamby person. We are dealing with the Creator of the heavens and the earth. Then the Messiah was explaining. Then gather the laborers and give them their wages, and begin from the last, and go on until the first. And those of the 11th hour came, and each received a denarius. And when the first came, they hoped that they would receive more. And they each also received a denarius. And when they received it, they argued against, because they said, these last ones worked only for an hour, and we, then being the people who bore the burden of the entire day, then you count us equal with these people. And he said, did you not then concur of receiving then a denarius per day? What can we understand of this link? Did not the nation of Israel promise to obey the Holy Creator when they were in the desert? So the Messiah came, he was the promised Messiah, and he does as per instructions. They promised obedience. So then, if you're a rich person, manipulator, you enjoy your position, your black CEO chair, junky computer in front of you, manipulating whosoever you can, and then trying being holy once every 7 days. Great news for you. 99.99% you won't be saved. Upon death, your soul going straight down. And the Messiah himself has said it. Is there a chance for you? Absolutely. Study tabernacling. And then be diligent and save your own soul. You're not going to save my soul, you're going to save yours. You not only understand tabernacling, but bear fruit. It's not only becoming a sucker of others' explanation of the holy instructions, where then you should study and then explain yourself. Please stay tuned.